Cool. Thank you guys so much. Um, hello. Hello, and welcome to this live presentation of Writing Collab's 100 Days of Creative Resistance. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm Brian Gresko. I'm co-founder and director of Writing Collab, which is a teaching cooperative that provides online classes and accountability groups, an annual retreat to Crete, as well as an online summer program and one-on-one coaching. Writing Collab launched 3 years ago with a progressive and radical ethos. We are a loosely organized group of authors, artists, and educators who believe that by working together, guided by compassion, staying hungry and scrappy, we can not only nurture new and emerging writers, but also support and sustain one another. Being creative in community, helping one another think outside the tiny boxes that capitalism wants to put us in, is essential to who we are at Writing Collab. But a year ago after the election, like so many, I felt so powerless, so alone, and so distraught. And the plan of what laid ahead seemed so clear, right? Project 2025 was not a secret. How brazen and arrogant they are and how little they think of us. They didn't even keep their stupid dictator playbook a private thing. But what I wondered, could I do, right? I'm not wealthy. I don't have political connections. I'm not a lawyer. And then I realized what I did have, which is over the years, a community of writer colleagues and friends whose work has nurtured and sustained me through hard times, and the organizational tools of the collab. So I got to work. I made a spreadsheet. I sent out a lot of emails. And the result was that Writing Collab sent out a message from a different author for each of the first 100 days of this terrible regime. These missives, which were offered for free as a gift to readers, provided commiseration and encouragement. They expressed grief and rage against the killing machines of fascism. They imagined alternatives to destruction and hate, beautiful, radical, joyful alternatives. They spoke truth to power. And they reminded us why we do this weird and wonderful thing that we do, which is make art in a world that so often does not value art or the time, labor, and courage required to make it. Together, these messages form the 100 Days of Creative Resistance, which now serve as a time capsule of those first few dystopian months under this regime. I'm going to try to drop a link in the archive, to the archive in the chat, but my mouse here is acting up. So I'm not going to right now. I'll do it later. But cut to a few weeks ago, author Mira Jacob invited me to join the Fall of Freedom, which is an action of grassroots resistance that this weekend has catalyzed over 600 events across the nation. Each one a reminder that even though things feel dire, and they are, we together are not powerless. Far fucking from it. We have friends everywhere. We can learn from one another, and we can learn from the wisdom of those who came before us, how to survive, how to thrive, how to turn the tide, and when necessary, how to fight. So tonight, as part of the Fall of Freedom, Writing Collab offers a live version of the 100 Days of Creative Resistance, featuring 6 of the project's participants. Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah is here. Ingrid Rojas Contreras is here. Melissa Febos is here. Robert Jones Jr. is here. Celeste Ng is here. And Denne Michele Norris is here. We're sending healthy vibes to Nicole Chung, who was scheduled to be here, but sadly is unable to make it. But please know that she stands with us in solidarity. Each of the authors are going to read, and then afterwards we'll briefly discuss what this year has been like personally and creatively. Thank you again for being here. A reminder, please keep your mic on mute and use the chat to shower our readers with love and appreciation. Please, just love, but show a lot of it, please. We need it. First up is a literary hero of mine and a friend, Melissa Febos. Melissa is the national best-selling author of 5 books, including the highly acclaimed collection Girlhood, winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award in Criticism, and the memoir which came out earlier this year, The Dry Season. She is a Guggenheim and NEA Fellow and a professor at the University of Iowa. Melissa, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks everybody for being here. It already feels so good to be in this virtual space, and what a treat to get to read with these writers, some of whom I've definitely met in person and some of whom I haven't, and I've just loved their writing. So it's a treat to share the space with you all and to get to hear you read. All right, I'm going to read my entry for 100 Days of Creative Resistance. And it was really interesting to return to this and read it, which I wrote um, last winter. And I just want to thank Brian for the cause to reflect on how this year has been and how I feel sort of at the mouth of this winter, looking back at the middle of last year. Early this winter, ice encased our Iowan trees, and when the wind bent them, they knocked like an insistent visitor. Hello, hello. I was glad to be home after so much traveling. I had finished a book and started another. I missed my wife. I missed my dog, though he was gone forever. I thought I'd manage not to be hopeful about the election and immediately knew I'd failed. I called everyone I loved and rolled out my life like a map. I wanted to know what else I could do, what a middle aged sober addict with a bad back and high maintenance mental health hygiene could do, if there was something better than standing in a room, arranging sentences, sitting and trying not to think, strengthening my core, scribbling in notebooks and talking on the phone, walking around my Midwestern town, teaching and trying to keep an open heart. There seemed to be some, but not a lot more. I have always talked a lot about love and also spent a lot of time avoiding it. I've had a lot of thrill and a lot of hurt, both seeking and avoiding. An open heart isn't something you can opt into a la carte. I used to just want the fun kinds and the ravaging. Now, I think there are bigger loves, more walk ins welcome varieties, more applied sorts, the ones you choose again and again. Here's a question: what kinds of love will you choose today? What kinds have you already chosen? I have talked to other sober addicts and drunks every single day for 22 years, and whatever happens, I'll keep doing that. I'll keep arranging sentences, all the rest too. Alongside that, I'll keep wondering how to walk and teach and sleep and eat and stroll the high V with the genocide in one hand and my wallet in the other without cracking down the middle. Maybe it is just the ice cracking, not a break, but a knock. Hello? Hello? Come inside. Come on in.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was incredible. So beautiful to hear it read aloud. Thank you. Yeah, I love seeing all the love in the chat as well. So gorgeous. Just taking a minute to let that sink in. All right. Our next reader of the evening is Denne Michele Norris. Denne is the editor-in-chief of Electric Literature, winner of the 2022 Whiting Literary Magazine Prize. She is the first Black openly trans woman to helm a major literary publication. A 2021 Out 100 honoree, her writing has been supported by MacDowell, Tin House, and Convilio for Black Fiction, and appears in McSweeney's, American Short Fiction, and Zora. She co-hosts the critically acclaimed podcast Food for Thought. Her debut novel, When the Harvest Comes, came out in April, and she is also the editor of Both End, Essays by Trans and Gender Nonconforming Authors of Color, which published in August. It's been an incredible year. Denne, you have the microphone. Welcome.
It's amazing to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Brian, in such incredible company. I admire every single author who's in this lineup, and so it's really an honor. As you mentioned, I published 2 books this year, which was wonderful, but also overwhelming. I would not necessarily recommend that if you can avoid that schedule. And for most of my events, I've focused on reading from the novel, but I felt like for this event, I would really like to read from the anthology and to read from the introduction, since that's the part that I wrote. So I'm just going to give you some of that. In the early aughts, when I was in high school, my friends and I often chose Claire's as our meetup location at the mall. We perused the accessories and sometimes could even afford to buy a trendy charm bracelet or puka shell necklace. One humid summer night in Cleveland, a copper armband caught my eye. It was the kind of thing I imagined Cleopatra might have worn, curled several times around the upper arm, each end adorned with the ruby-eyed head of a snake. The ornament looked out of place hanging from a shelf in Claire's, as out of place as I felt standing there in a polo shirt and loose cargo shorts gawking at it. My friends were running late, so I tried it on, walking around the store, glancing in every mirror. After a few minutes, I stood in front of where I'd found it, considering if I'd really wear it, if I purchased it. It's fine for you to try that on, as long as you don't buy it. A saleswoman had crept up behind me. She was black with graying hair pulled back into a tight bun, and she wore stockings and the sensible kitten-heeled shoes of a woman who never missed her Sunday church service. I didn't know her, and yet I knew her very well. I'm sorry? You wouldn't actually buy that. You're not a girl, it's not for you. She had clocked me. No, ma'am, I guess I'm not. I placed the armband into her outstretched hand and rushed from the store, my eyes lowered to the ground as I frantically texted my friends to meet me elsewhere. I was angry and embarrassed, but mostly I felt exposed. I'd been standing by myself in a store meant for teenage girls in a suburban mall in Middle America. I typically felt invisible, but with one glance, one comment, this woman let me know that she could see me for what I was and what I wasn't. A year later, a friend and I visited a different mall, a fancier mall, one that didn't even have a Claire's. We walked around, he and I, deep in conversation about sexual identity and stereotypes, when he asked me quite calmly if I had ever considered the idea that I might actually be a girl, one who'd simply been born into the wrong body. I considered his question. His tone was gentle, but his query was sharp, pointed, and it lodged itself inside of me. I was aware of trans people's existence because of the T in the acronym LGBT, and because I'd seen episodes of The Nanny and Will and Grace, but they had always been, to me, more theoretical than real. Being trans seemed an unthinkable way to move through the world. I was already Black and gay and the son of a well-known Baptist minister. I was a high school senior who had somehow managed to survive at a deeply conservative all-boys prep school. Soon, I would be a freshman at a progressive liberal arts college outside Philadelphia. I had worked hard in school, convinced that leaving Cleveland and never looking back was the only answer if I wanted to live my best Black queer life. This college, a campus where the Princeton Review said it was easier to come out as queer than as a Republican, was my reward. I wanted to step into the freedom of the real world and distance myself from the context in which I was raised. I was not looking for further marginalization. I told my friend that I was not transgender, but his question punctured me like a bullet that wouldn't or couldn't be removed. I first had the idea for an essay series centering trans and gender nonconforming writers of color in fall of 2021. I had recently been named the editor-in-chief of Electric Literature, a groundbreaking digital literary magazine with an annual readership of more than 3 million. A few months earlier, I'd publicly disclosed my identity as a trans woman, something I'd been preparing to do for 2 years in response to a question I'd been asking myself for 16. When I was named to this new role, I was widely celebrated as the first Black openly trans woman to helm a literary publication. Around this time, the comedian Dave Chappelle released a new Netflix special, The Closer, in which he pitted the Black community and the LGBTQ community against each other, arguing that queer white people are better off in contemporary American society than Black people and often participate in the racist marginalization of Black people. The role played by different marginalized groups in each other's oppression deserves a richly considered and nuanced conversation. But instead, Chappelle completely erased the existence of those who live at the intersection of Black and queer identities. Around the same time, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie published an essay that doubled down on an evasive response she gave when asked whether or not a trans woman is a woman. My feeling is that trans women are trans women. This puzzled me. As a woman who claims to be in alliance with the LGBTQ community, her choice to write the essay felt like an intentional anti-trans dog whistle to her global army of supporters, many of whom are self-described TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists. But Chappelle infuriated me. The popularity of his special and the conversation it ignited remained a major talking point in news media for weeks. Netflix defended the special, resulting in a walkout by the company's trans employees. Over weeks of social media and news media discourse, what I noticed was this. For all the dialogue surrounding trans identity, the loudest voices in this conversation were never trans people, and in particular, were never trans people of color. We were the existential center of a cultural boiling point, and our voices were almost nowhere to be found. For My Fury Was Born Both And, a series of 15 essays published online by Electric Literature with the goal of elevating trans and gender nonconforming writers of color to a national literary platform. But there was one key distinction. These writers would have the unique opportunity to be edited by a trans writer of color. Electric Literature quickly fundraised to support the series, meeting and then exceeding our goal in just 1 week, proving that writers and readers alike were hungry for these essays. The popularity of the series, which was published on electricliterature.com in 2023, as well as the ever-growing far-right political targeting of the queer community, further proves how necessary these essays are. Last year, Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election, during which Republicans spent hundreds of millions of dollars on anti-trans ads. As I watched the results, my heart fell from my chest. I knew what was coming, and predictably, less than 12 hours later, I tuned into morning shows where I saw political pundits from both parties blaming the trans community for the election results. Early analysis saw folks saying that the Democratic Party was out of touch with the majority of American voters, that the party was too woke, that American families didn't want grown men playing sports against little girls. The absurdity of that statement aside, I kept thinking to myself, but I'm an American voter too. What followed was a profound sense of displacement, politically speaking. While my values are progressive, I have always been a voter motivated by pragmatism and harm reduction. I was raised in a Black middle-class family of churchgoers by parents born between the silent generation and the baby boomers. I was raised to vote in every election, and I was raised to vote without attaching a grave sense of preciousness to that vote. It wasn't necessary to agree with everything my chosen political candidate said, in part because voting wasn't supposed to be the sum of my political engagement. It was a chess move, a means to an end, and it was the bare minimum. More simply put, I have always been a registered voter, and I have always voted for the Democratic ticket. Given my values, this means I have also, always, held a deep sense of frustration at the party's continued pursuit of moderate white voters. Being Black and being queer, I have always worried that when it comes to policy, measures that affirmed and protected my existence would end up on the chopping block, and very often that's exactly what happened. But in recent years, public opinion has shifted. Marriage equality, for instance, has been legal for nearly a decade, and folks have largely realized that their heterosexual marriages were never in danger. Perhaps it was the optimism of youth or the stability of democracy, but I never looked into the future fearing what it held for me or my community. Yet when faced with the possibility of a rebooted Trump administration, I felt strongly that Kamala Harris needed to win if I was to maintain any sense of safety. Whenever progress is made, there's corresponding backlash. Right now, we live in a time of escalated targeting of the LGBT community, and we stand on the precipice of an even darker era. Being a writer, I turn to literature in times of darkness, the writing of it, and more importantly, the reading of it, in the face of a political class that at best hesitates to stand beside us and at worst works to bring about our ruin. I introduce you to the brilliant writers in this anthology, all of whom live at the fraught intersection of race and gender identity. I just want to quickly say the names of everyone who's in this incredible book. That was an honor for me to edit. Kaya Ball, Gabrielle Below, Denne, Caro de Robertis, Okweke Emetsi, Autumn Fourkiller, Edgar Gomez, Zane Jukadar, A.L. Major, Miss Peppermint, Meredith Toulousan, Tanais, Kai Chen Kam, I.C.E, Vanessa Angelica Villarreal, Raquel Willis, and Jonah Wu. This is the cover.
Thank you, Dan. That's incredible. And also, I'm so excited. What a year. Congrats on that. And also, I'm putting the link in here. I'm sure this our audience is well familiar with Electric Literature, but Electric Literature is also in a period of fundraising for the end of the year and do such incredible work. Dan, do you want to say if you want to make a pitch, please?
I mean, y'all, I don't need to go into all the details. It's all on the website. We've lost our NEA funding because they're trash right now. Grant money is drying up. Please give us money. I like being employed. And you know, we're committed to continuing to exist and continuing to platform the writers whose voices deserve to be heard, particularly folks who are being targeted in all of the ways that this administration is targeting everyone. But please help us reach our $35,000 goal if you are able, and spread the word.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, I mean, I have been I've worked with electric literature for so long, and I look at electric literature, well, in my inbox, I think every day. So it's yeah, it's such an incredible um, venue. So please, if you can, support electric literature and keep it going. Awesome. All right, moving right along. Our next reader for the evening is Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. Nana Kwame was raised in Spring Valley, New York, and now lives in the Bronx. His debut collection, Friday Black, was a New York Times bestseller, won the Penn Gene Stein Book Award and the William Saroyan International Prize for Writing, and was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle's John Leonard Award and the Dylan Thomas Prize. Nana's first novel, Chain Gang All-Stars, was a finalist for the National Book Award for Fiction, shortlisted for the Waterstones Debut Fiction Prize and the Books Are My Bag Awards, and selected as a New York Times Top 10 Book of the Year. Nana is a National Book Foundation's 5 under 35 honoree. Nana, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much. I kind of like try not to think about everyone that was going to be on this event because the way my anxiety works, like it would have just been too much. But I just want to say I'm really honored to get to share this space, even though like on some level, like, because this is like a Zoom, you know, it reminds me of like pandemic days, but I don't feel that like dread of that time. So I'm happy to be here with y'all here today. I'm going to read my entry in the 100 Days series. And then I also have an ask at the end. We called it Faithfully, but I've been editing it a little bit, so maybe I'll change the name, but for now, I'm Faithfully. This is a question I received earlier in the year during a Q&A. It was the last question, a kind of final boss at a literary event. Before I got off the stage, stopped being a capital A author and returned to being an audience member. The question was this: what would you say to young people who are feeling hopeless right now, considering the planet, the American government, etc.? What would you tell them? I was on stage, squinting through the house lights to the back row where the question was coming from. The room got damp with quiet, waiting for my response. I took probably too big a breath before saying how much I understood where the question was coming from because, like, look around. And then because I had been feeling a little lost myself, I said somewhat reflexively, hope is a discipline. It's something you nurture over time. I do the work even when I'm feeling somewhat hopeless because I must. And though this is true, the words felt dead on my lips as I said them. Afterwards, I stepped down from the stage, became an audience member, one of many people shuffling out of the space. A woman who had been sitting in the audience came up to me. By the look in her eyes, I knew she was going to offer me something, and she did. She told me that in previous years, Kiese Lemon had been asked a similar question, one of hope. The lesser, more egoic part of me thrummed, sure that whatever came next was confirmation that I'd given an unsatisfactory answer to an important question. But I listened because the better part of me was eager to receive whatever gift she was ready to bestow from a writer I admire. What she said was that Kiese had rejected the idea that it was hope that was keeping him going despite the America of it all. She said she agreed. It isn't hope, it's faith. And then she repeated the words, it's faith. You may have heard people say hope is a discipline, and I genuinely think it to be true. I believe this. But I also know that without getting more specific, it can feel a little flat or even harsh to demand that the aching hopeless you feel, maybe right now, is a product of a limited discipline. I was grateful in the moment for the woman at the event because once she said the words of remembering flooded into me. I felt refilled. And so it is true that we are in the middle of authoritarian takeover of our government, a government with way too much military power and influence. It is true that an American-funded genocide in Palestine is ongoing despite a ceasefire. The violent crisis in Sudan has displaced millions. It is true that global temperatures are rising, and also, for some reason, the largest tech companies in the world are trying to jam AI technology into every fucking thing. And yet, I have faith. The question then is, how do I cultivate the audacity to have faith despite the bleakness before me? And if I have faith, what do I have faith in? Big questions. Here is what I wish I had had the time to say on stage that afternoon. First, when I say I have faith, what I mean is I have faith that things will get better. More specifically, I have an unshakable belief that a critical mass of people can be moved to center compassion, mutual aid, love, and community in all aspects of our society so that everything from our architecture to our general resource management minimizes avoidable suffering. I was 33 at the time of writing this. I'm 34 now. You didn't ask, but I'm a Pisces. I sometimes work with a group called the Rockland Coalition to End the New Jim Crow. Many of the members are twice my age, and many of them have been advocating for climate justice, anti-war justice, anti-carceral justice, and the right to education since long before I was ever born. Admittedly, sometimes the members of this group are long-winded. Sometimes they're impossibly sharp. Always, I am invigorated by them. How can I be around these fighters and be like, I'm good. I don't think it's possible. I have no faith in the movement. I guess what I'm saying is they kept faith that a world that they were born in could improve, and they were right. By being involved with organizing efforts, I have hard proof that collective effort can and belief can yield results. And also, I have the strength that is inherent to community. In them, I find faith. When I think of the civil rights movement, the independence movements that so many people have suffered through to unchain themselves from colonialism, I am reminded that I am the product of a great many who fought despite overwhelming odds. And again, like if we're being for real, I live in comfort. I breathe in privilege. Those much less privileged have sustained the fight for much longer. And just thinking about it, it's like if I were to just claim I have no hope, that I'm absolutely without faith, it's like, hey guys, able-bodied straight male here with multiple degrees and multiple current gen video game consoles. And I decided that I give up. I'm joking sort of, but you take my point. A more serious point though is this. You and I, by the fact of our breathing, are inheritors of a most holy tradition, living and building actively towards a more compassionate world. When I remember the ancestors and those who are still alive that have worked in the movement, it is easy to feel full of faith. Why would I abandon this sacred inheritance? I know it's not necessarily a choice, but I'm starting to believe more and more that there are components of faith over which we do have agency. Ellen Langer is a professor of psychology at Harvard. She has all the accolades and whatnot. Dr. Langer is most famous for the counterclockwise study. In that study, men in their late 70s and 80s were set to live together in a home that was designed with the aesthetics of the 1950s, a time when the men were much younger. During the week they lived together, they were asked to use the language that favored those prior years. Even their home radio sang the songs of the past. Effectively, inside the home where the men were sequestered, it was 1959, though at the time of the study, the actual year was 1979. Something miraculous happened. The men's hearing improved, as did their eyesight, as did their strength and dexterity, and even their physical appearances. In this experiment, it became clear that even those hard truths of life, like aging, are heavily influenced by our perceptions and thoughts and feelings in observable ways. What does this have to do with how I keep faith? Well, sometimes I lean on peer-reviewed science to reaffirm matters of the heart. But here's another example before I get to my point. Another experiment conducted by Dr. Langer included two groups of maids and housekeepers working across different hotels. The first group, G1, was told that the movement that they had been doing for work, that had naturally been doing for work, was well within the parameters of what the CDC considered exercise. And as such, doing their jobs was good for their physical health. The other group, G2, the control group, was not told this. Both groups did the same jobs they had been doing for years, but when both groups were observed 4 weeks later, the G1 housekeepers that believed they were doing meaningful exercise displayed all the positive effects one would associate with doing exercise. For example, the G1 group displayed lower systolic blood pressure by 10 points on average, and their body fat percentages decreased in ways that did not happen with the control group. When I am exposed to studies like this, I'm reminded of the power of placebo, and in this case, even without being given any sugar pill or external thing outside of an idea, a psychological change can be spurred. Studies like this remind me that it matters what we believe, that the echoes of our belief shape our physical lives and by extension, the world around us. I guess I believe the same is true of faith. Faith serves faith. Believing makes it true. Because I've committed myself to this idea, because I really feel it, my faith in the power of faith orders my steps. And through some means I don't understand, I know the world will change because of it. You may not see the connection. You may be like, fuck that. But I urge you, let me be your placebo. I am telling you that if you believe, that belief will be rewarded in actions that will help pull the collective to a place we all want to get. Keep faith. And if that doesn't sing to you, remember, it's science. Last year, I was in a prison in Mississippi. I spent the afternoon with men who will die there, men who have become scholars and read more closely than any other group of people I've ever met. In talking about books, including my own, we spoke of grace, of forgiveness, and a willingness to forgive oneself and also anyone else. I've learned a lot of faith from those in difficult circumstances, those for whom it seems there is no way, those who grow faith because they need it. I've seen them, felt them. They help me nurture this belief I need so dearly, that we need so dearly. As a writer, I am first a reader. And so in some ways, this union we are in right now is a tremendous source of faith for me. Earlier, I mentioned what I have faith in, the idea that people, the majority of people, can be moved towards compassion. My own growth has helped me know this is a possibility. Working on my last book, I hoped I was an abolitionist, and now I know I am. I was transformed by the work of paying attention, of seeing, of listening, and of reading. I've also had the specific honor of having people from all over the planet tell me that exposure to my last book helped them come to identify with abolition. And interestingly, they're telling me this reaffirms the faith that pushed me to write the book in the first place. Faith serves faith, serves faith, serves. I hope in listening to this, you might feel the sincerity I feel vibrating out of me when I say I have faith that this world can grow into something more lovely, more loving. And if you are struggling to summon your own faith, I hope that you might be able to borrow some of mine. Let this faith or the faith of others hold you while your roots set. Then stand on your own and let someone else lean on you. Thanks so much, guys. And I'm sort of in the spirit of this. Most years, for the last couple of years, I've done a toy drive for the children of incarcerated people. And even some people here have actually donated to this drive. This year, because of the ICE raids that are rampant where I'm from a place called Spring Valley, Rockland County, just over the bridge in New York. We've been really devastated by ICE raids, and I'm partnering with a local immigrant-led organization called Proyecto Ferro. And we are trying to raise money to get grocery cards and other essentials for families who have been devastated by ICE. So if you would like to, I'll put a link in the chat, and it'd be really meaningful if you would support in any small way that you can. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you so much. How incredible to hear that piece read aloud. I remember when it came in my inbox, and it just hit me. So incredible. Thank you. Also, I love the hat behind you. A better world is coming. Yes. Incredible.
It might be strategically placed. Who's to say?
I love it. Thank you. Also, thank you guys in the audience. since Nana just mentioned about like how, yeah, it felt like or feels a little bit like meeting on Zoom like this, a little bit like the old pandemic times. I had run a weekly reading series called The Antibody during the pandemic lockdown, and one thing that we didn't have on Zoom back then is all these little hearts and stuff floating up when people say things, and I got to say I kind of love that. So just keep that going. It's really lovely to see that you are responding in real time to the authors. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that heart. I love it. Oh, incredible. All right, moving right along. Ingrid Rojas Contreras was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. Her memoir, The Man Who Could Move Clouds, was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. Her debut novel, Fruit of the Drunken Tree, was the silver medal winner in first fiction from the California Book Awards. Her essays and short stories have appeared in the New York Times Magazine, The Believer, among others. And she's joining us tonight from where she lives in California with her cat, Ingrid.
Yes, she was here. She might hop on again in my lap.
Yes, I love it. Give me here, hold on. I've got to take my pin off. There you go. The mic is yours.
Hello everyone. What a great night of readings it's been. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much everyone for your words. They really hit I'm sure that I read not the intro to the anthology yet, but everybody else's essays I had read, and it does something else to hear them. It's just been so lovely. So very happy to be here. I'm gonna read my entry for the series as well. I grew up surrounded by turmoil. In 90s Bogota, I grew up feeling that at any moment, the life my family and I had might disappear. We might be pulverized in a car bomb blast, or vanished into the hands of captors in the kidnappings that were so common to the era. We received phone threats to our house every day. One day, all the windows in our block shattered from a nearby bomb. Still, we had a childhood. We thought ourselves funny, adorable, charming. We knew joy. I have been thinking of this time recently because as then I am invaded by a similar feeling, the not knowing what will happen feeling, the seeing people being disappeared feeling. Back then, living in turmoil plunged me in anticipatory grief. It made me live small, but I am remembering something else. Once I had had enough of anxiety, past the acceptance that I would one day pass, as must we all, a door opened. What was it that makes life beautiful? I asked myself. Worthwhile? What matters most? The answer for me was stories, language. I thought of it immediately. The astonishing way Don Quixote, written 300 years before I ever opened its cover, could still make me laugh. The way a well-told story could quiet a room, rearrange me completely, make me feel alive to the mystery of myself and to the world. I remember I looked up to Colombian journalists who reported on the truth in spite of the threats they received from the armed groups, stories that sometimes cost them their lives. I couldn't imagine having that much courage. But when people asked me what I wanted to be, I always said I wanted to be a journalist. Partly I was saying I wanted to grow up to be someone that believed in what language could do as much as those journalists, that I judged that to be a good life. I've been doing my best to become that person since then. I love language deeply. I treasure stories, oral, written, things told in whispers to me overheard on the TV. What I have found is that over time, over the course of my life, this faith in loving something deeply has given me exactly what I needed in order to coexist with turmoil, to outlast it. Even as things did go very wrong back then, even as my father was kidnapped and my sister and I were nearly kidnapped and we had to uproot ourselves and leave Colombia, finding my own answer to that question allowed the magic of rearranging myself around what I found most worthwhile. And it means that come what may, you are sitting in the middle of the feeling that your life is beautiful and everything has been and will be worthwhile. I am offering this because maybe you might find the door too by asking yourself what matters most. And once you find it, truly find what matters to you, what makes every second of your life worth living, maybe you can pour yourself over to that thing. Possibly this will be a well that can outlast it all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. It is so beautiful, like you said, to hear these read aloud. Yeah, give it up in that chat for Ingrid. I love seeing all those hearts. Let them go, let them flow. Incredible. Thank you. And thanks to your cat for being here, but not being there too much. Our next reader is Celeste Ng. Celeste is the internationally best-selling author of the novels Everything I Never Told You, Little Fires Everywhere, and Our Missing Hearts. Celeste's writing has been featured in the New York Times, The Guardian, and many other publications, and has been translated into more than 30 languages. Celeste has been awarded the Massachusetts Book Award, the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, the ALA's Alex Award, and the Pushcart Prize, as well as fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Guggenheim Foundation. So happy to be able to hear you read again, Celeste. The mic is yours.
Hi, thank you all so much for being here. I'm so honored to be reading in the company of so many writers whose work I really admire. And I'm really struck that I read all these as they came out, and I similarly am feeling really moved by hearing them read aloud by their authors and feeling sort of reinvigorated. I'm going to read my essay as well. I was thinking about writing something new, and I went back and read, and I realized that all of the things that I was saying then still felt very true now. And then I got sucked into reading all the other pieces, and that was what got me out of the house and actually to my computer today to write for the first time in quite a while, I'll admit. So I'm going to read my piece, which, like Donna's, is also about trying to keep the faith. I'll be honest, I have not been writing much these past few months. I wrote this quite a while ago. I will say, unfortunately, that's still true. The little writing that I've done is emails and letters to my elected representatives, the officials at my alma maters, the CEOs of companies. Some of these messages are rational and argumentative. Some are emotional and personal. Some are righteous and rageful. All of them have gone unanswered. Unfortunately, that's also still true. Most of the other things I've been doing lately feel similarly pointless. I've been posting Know Your Rights flyers and volunteering at our local community markets. I've been attending protests and encouraging others to join. I've been organizing local friends into a group to take collective action in our community and exhorting strangers on the internet to take action. No matter what I do, it doesn't seem to make a difference. The news keeps getting worse. I frequently find myself in a spiral about our world in general and the US in particular, in which I begin to believe that, one, any actions I can take are so small they will never make a difference. And also, two, the game is rigged against the side of inclusion and open-mindedness and humanity, and it's getting more rigged all the time. And by the way, three, we are all so disconnected from each other now that I don't know how we can ever come together. Thus, four, there's no point in even trying. So five, I may as well give up on the world and humanity completely. And six, maybe the imminent end of the human species / the planet / the universe isn't actually such a terrible thing after all. But what I'm trying to remind myself as I circle the drain mentally is that I've felt these feelings many times before, or at least their close cousin, because this is uncannily similar to what I feel almost every time I sit down to write. As the initial infatuation with a book idea starts to wear off, as I feel my progress stalling out, as I end up deleting more words than I add and end up reading what little I've got over and over with increasing despair, I start to believe that, one, it's not possible for me to finish this book, because two, it is not physically possible for this book to be finished, and regardless, three, this book is not worth finishing anyway, and also probably four, writing as a general pursuit is pointless because no one reads books anymore. Therefore, five, I need to find another career, except I am completely unqualified for any actual work, and so six, I am an absolute disaster of a person and a waste of space. I am not at all religious, but the more and more it occurs to me that what we do as writers is really an act of faith. We don't know if the words that we put on the page today will stay in the book tomorrow, let alone whether they'll ever add up to a final draft. We don't know if a final draft will ever come together, let alone when. It might take years to write a book, and even if we finish it, which is never a guarantee, will anyone ever read it? Will it matter to anyone? Will it have any effect on the world, or is this just shouting into the void? And yet, most of us, most days, still keep putting words on the page for ourselves because it matters to us. So I have been replaying all the pep talks that my friends and I give to each other about our writing work and reminding myself that they also apply to taking action in the real world, the work of pushing towards a world that is more equitable and more humane. On days when we write barely a handful of words, we tell each other to celebrate the win, that 100 or 50 or even 20 words is more words than we had the day before. We remind each other that making anything worthwhile takes time, that we have to be both patient and persistent, that those handfuls of words add up. We do what we need to keep faith in the project itself, to believe that it will eventually come together, and that no matter how long it takes, that in the end, it will find its readers, that it will speak to them, and it will make a lasting difference in their lives. We take turns supporting each other, giving each other permission to rest and recharge on days when the writing doesn't happen. We remind each other of the inherent worth and value of our work, even when despair feels like the only possible option. We encourage each other to keep going, to get back on the horse, to keep chipping away day after day, month after month, year after year. I don't know that the actions that I'm taking will coalesce into any kind of movement or groundswell. I don't know that they'll make a difference to anyone or that they'll turn the tide that feels like it's rushing in the wrong direction. I don't know that anything that I work for will happen in my lifetime, in my son's lifetime, or ever. I am acting into the void. So are we all. And yet, I'm trying to remember that this is an act of faith too. Faith that what we do will become part of something greater, that eventually, cumulatively, our work will have an effect on the world. I don't believe in lone heroes and climactic showdowns. They make for easy, tidy, easily graspable narratives. But the truth is that lasting change always comes through collective action, and it is often slow. There's no way forward except together, patiently and persistently, one word and one action at a time. None of this feels like enough because none of it is enough. And yet, you keep the faith. You keep putting words down on the page. You keep doing what you can, where you are, with what you have. You try every day to do the work and trust that one day it will become enough. And even if you can't see any progress, even if your work disappears in the night, you share it with your friends and you promise each other to show up again tomorrow and the day after that. So for today, see if you can put some words on the page, even if it's only a few. Then see if you can take an action in the world, even if it's a small one. Repeat tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Celeste. Incredible, incredible. And so I hope you get a moment to look in the chat, the responses. It's just been really beautiful. This piece has hit a lot, and your work has meant so much to so many. So yeah, thank you for this. So amazing to hear it read aloud. And so amazing too to see the resonances between pieces as well. That was such a also amazing part of this whole project. Really cool. All right, our final reader for the evening is Robert Jones Jr., formerly known as Son of Baldwin. Robert is a Brooklyn, New York-based writer and public speaker. He is the author of the New York Times best-selling novel, The Prophets, which was a finalist for the 2021 National Book Award for Fiction. His writings have been featured in the New York Times, Essence, Variety, and the Paris Review. And he keeps an amazing newsletter called Witness, which I will try to. I'm sorry, I'm having some real tech problems here with my thing. I'll get it into the chat in a second. Robert, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Brian, for providing this space, for this call to action. And to my fellow writers, thank you so much for allowing me to read alongside you. I really feel humbled that I'm in the company of such greats. And I also feel so blessed to be able to hear your testimony. So thank you so much for this. I am also reading from my entry for 100 Days of Creative Resistance, and it's called On Despair, Purpose, Art, and Love. 2024 was quite cruel to me. It was characterized by extraordinary personal loss. My mother died in April, 2 days after my birthday. In October, my godmother died. In November, on the 46th anniversary of my maternal grandmother's death, my aunt died. Then, in December, 2 of my cousins died on the same day, 3 hours apart. Donald Trump's victory in the presidential election and what it revealed about the citizens of a country that I no longer feel comfortable claiming as mine served only to make each of those already devastating circumstances of grief even more severe. My mother's passing alone was enough to threaten my life. I cannot tell you what it is like to carry the rest on top of something as debilitating as that. It has been a mission of moving repeatedly between shock and sorrow. I have been fighting against all efforts that point me towards self-pity, while still realizing that while I may not have reasons for that particular indulgence, I do have reasons to despair. And the world gives me more each passing hour. As far as the world is concerned, none of this is new. The ruthlessness we're witnessing is a sorry but ancient phenomenon, perhaps even older than humanity itself. The strong, by virtue of their strength and spurred on by their voracious appetites, have always felt compelled to consume those deemed weaker. That particular drama might be etched in nature. There's no way for me to know for sure. Yet, I'm obsessed with determining how to combat that way of thinking, that way of being. I don't think it's merely happenstance that human beings can conceive of an idea like peace. It must mean that it's a possibility, one that requires extraordinary ongoing effort since we, human beings, aren't of one accord on this measure. And violence tickles our fancies much more than harmony does. So I don't know, and I'm extremely frustrated with myself for not having the answer. I'll tell you this much. I prefer the olive branch to the sword, but I do know how to wield both. I don't want to have to match the world's energy monster for monster, though, which is why I seek alternatives. When I'm troubled, there are things that I do to keep myself steady. One of these things I've learned to do to help keep me centered is meditation. I bought an audiobook, Meditations for Black Men, 10 Guided Meditations for the Body, Mind, and Spirit by Jorel Caraballo, that has, quite frankly, saved my life. Books do that, don't they? Help us, center us, save us. If we don't understand this, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy certainly does. A major strategy through which oppressors hope to keep us scattered, divided, bruised, and confused is their banning of books. It's no coincidence that the books they most often identify for banning are works of fiction and books by authors from marginalized communities. They know all too well that the research has demonstrated that reading fiction imparts critical thinking and empathy, two things that run contrary to the goals of empire. This is why I'm heartbroken when I see that due to draconian sociopolitical imperatives and an over-reliance on technology, our children not only read less, but write less. This makes them ripe for manipulation. And if we fail the children, which we are undoubtedly doing, then there is no hope for the species. We cannot rely on our government, and it seems that for the foreseeable future, we cannot. We must then rely on ourselves, not as individuals, but as community. Fortunately, my ancestors left a blueprint. In times when my entire world is destabilized, I return to their wisdom. Because I am a writer and not, say, a painter or musician, though paintings and music can have just as much of a profound effect on me, I go through my stacks to find the books that not only made me a better writer, but also made me a better reader. I look for the books that challenge me. What I mean by that is I seek the books that hold me accountable, make me consider points of view other than my own, put me in other people's shoes, force me to think deeper and wider about the world I live in and my place in it. Books that interrogate my own inability to consider other people's humanity. I search for the works that don't simply play to my ego, exploit my grievances, and gird the narcissism that would have me out here believing that I know everything when I don't. That I'm always good, always innocent, always perfect, always right, always the victim, and therefore always above reproach. In short, I look for the books that recognize the human experience as complex rather than simplistic and keep me from becoming a junior version of my oppressor, but in marginalized drag. Reading these books make me, I think, a better person. What does better mean in this context? More loving. That's why there's just no way I can sit comfortably and watch while genocide is being committed in Myanmar, Palestine, and Sudan, or worse, pretend that it's not happening at all. I don't know if I believe in souls, but mine can't bear any sunshine or roses as transgender people are being systematically erased from existence. I refuse to applaud as self-deputized citizens choke the life out of starving people on subway trains and governments around the world exploit, expel, and concentration camp those seeking refuge. I recognize all of signals and signposts and warnings. What can be done to others can be done to us. We drape ourselves in many, many false less. We might all do well to understand it, for it is as the Jamaicans say, today for me, tomorrow for you. One of the last things my mother said to me before she transitioned away from the wretchedness of this world was finish your next book. She didn't say it in a way that was pat or sentimental. She said it as an imperative, with the full understanding of someone who watched me struggle from the age of 6 to make myself into the very thing I was sent here to be, but was afraid to claim. She knew my purpose before I knew it. And she knew this too. Art isn't some luxury. It's not an indulgence. It's not a vanity. It's not merely entertainment. It's not simply aesthetic. It's not pastime for the bored or fodder for the dilettante. Art is serious fucking political practice. It's the most spiritual act a human being can engage in and one of the most humane. Art is remedy and it can be cure. For what? For whatever ails us. And we, the artists, are neither frivolous nor extravagant, or at least we shouldn't be. Now, more than ever, we cannot allow ourselves to be that irresponsible. We have a lot of shit to get done for the sake of the babies we claim to love. It won't be easy. It's going to take everything out of us, and at times we're going to want to give up. To that I say, rest, beloved, then get back to magic. It's we who have the ability to alter people's hearts and change people's minds. The despots fear that more than they fear anything else. That's how we know it is power. I rose this morning is what Mahalia Jackson used to sing. In that rising is possibly a blessing, but for sure, an opportunity. You are alive. There's a reason for that. It is because you have a purpose and an obligation to leave the world in better condition than you found it. I impart these 3 points of profound wisdom from the ancestors for you to consider as you gather yourself for stormy weather. Quote, love has never been a popular movement, and no one's ever wanted really to be free. The world is held together, really, it is held together by the love and passion of a very few people. Otherwise, of course, you can despair. Walk down the street of any city, any afternoon, and look around you. What you have got to remember is what you're looking at is also you. Everyone you're looking at is also you. You could be that person. You could be that monster. You could be that cop, and you have to decide in yourself not to be. James Baldwin, Meeting the Man, James Baldwin in Paris, 1970. Second quote, this is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. I know the world is bruised and bleeding, and though it is important not to ignore its pain, it is critical to refuse to succumb to its malevolence. Like failure, chaos contains information that could lead to knowledge, even wisdom, like art. Toni Morrison, No Place for Self-Pity, No Room for Fear, The Nation, March 23rd, 2015. Third quote, it is our duty to fight our oppression for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Assata Shakur, Assata, an Autobiography, 1987. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Damn. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just gonna take a moment. So much love in the chat. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm mindful of time, and Melissa, I know you have to say goodbye. So yeah.
I do. I just want to thank everyone for your absolutely stunning readings. I've been so moved and heartened, and it's really been an honor to share the space with all of you tonight.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for being here. Have a good weekend. I'm mindful of you guys' time. I have just a couple questions if you have a few minutes. Yeah. I mean, I think this year, I guess, you know, there's kind of two questions. First, I mean, part of this regime strategy is just to overwhelm us with just constant news and announcements, some of them utterly bizarre, others shocking, all of them awful and terrible. So just in terms of handling that, how have you been, how do you handle this like onslaught and not find yourself falling into despair? Any advice for us or offerings on that?
I mean, I don't know about the not falling into despair part, but I think what's helped me is like having like lanes that I feel I can be particularly effective or useful, and also have those lanes have tendrils that reach many different quadrants of like sort of movement spaces. So to be more specific, like I teach and where I'm from, Spring Valley County, the East Ramapo Central School District has been in turmoil for a long time. So a lot of my like energy is in the like the avenue or the lane of like education and like sort of helping that group. But in that conversation, I end up thinking a lot about, because of where my school is and because of just like the demographics there, I end up thinking a lot about immigration and the particular violence against immigrants. And so for me, I guess what I'm saying is that like I try my best to be aware of of what's happening in the world, but I also have things that I am particularly engaged with where I have some avenue to like do something or at least be around people who are doing something specific. And that's why, whether it's yeah, just for me that helps me get like not be holding in despair, because I have to feel like in the community that I have around me, like I can have a sense of something being done. I think in the absence of like sort of community specific advocacy or specific community, everything just becomes one giant like behemoth of like scary violence. And by paying a particular kind of attention, I can start to like unbraid it in the way it's affecting it becomes more practical and specific as opposed to sort of nebulous and horrific. And that makes it a little, sometimes it makes it more terrible, but eventually it makes it a little bit less terrible, I think.
I love that. I was going to say something similar in that I'm trying to remember that nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. I mean, it's such a cliche, but I do think it's true. And kind of finding lanes is how I think of it too. Finding the things where I'm like, okay, this is a space where maybe I can make a difference. I think makes me more effective, makes me not burn out. And also has the benefit of, I think, reminding me that there's a lot of us, that none of us are alone in doing this. And so nobody has to do everything. And so that's the other part, as I was trying to think of how to answer Brian's question. For me, it's really been trying to find ways to remind myself that I'm not alone and to remind other people that they're not alone. Because it's always easier to take action when there are other people in it with you. And it's always easier to let go of some things because we're all human, we all have limitations. You can say, I can't fight that fight today. There's too much happening. I've had a loss, I'm doing this. But I know that there are others who are going to pick that up for a while, and then I will come back. And when they need a break, I can take over. I think that for me has been a big thing of just reminding myself how to be in community, finding new communities, reaching out to the people that I know, and learning from other people what to do. I think one of the things that this regime and just fascism in general is so good at doing is making you feel like you're alone and all you can do, all you have to do, all anyone can do is look out for yourself and screw everybody else and no one can help you. And every link that I think we make with each other, whether it's in person, whether it's, just reaching out to someone, whether it's with a stranger, a friend, or just through somebody's words, I think is a reminder that those bonds are real and that the regimes and fascism's goals of trying to keep you in your own little cell, that's one of the weapons they use, and that connecting is a way of fighting against that.
Thank you.
Oh, were you gonna ask the other one? Sorry.
No, do it. Go.
Okay. I was gonna say, once I've been very strategic about when I look at the news, because this happened to me many times where it would be the end of the day and I would actually be in bed and I would be like, let me check in on what happened today. And it would just be, it's like the wrong time to do it. But then I just would not be able to go to sleep. And one of the things that I know, just kind of doing things in your community and being able to have space to organize or to like show up and like do volunteer work with immigrants, which I do, is that you need space and you also need to have had rest in order to function and do all the things that we can offer to ourselves and to each other. So one of the things that I've been doing is just being intentional, like at what point in the day will I check? And it's usually for me, it means midday because I've already done the artistic work. And if something is bad, I have sort of like many hours to recover before I kind of go to sleep. And the other thing that has helped is I think, like a lot of the news or a lot of what the administration does is that they've just, been trying to just illegally do things left and right. And so oftentimes we get the news of, the government is doing this, and then it could happen that some months later it would be like, well, that's not allowed. So now there's an order for a reversal. And all of that is just like very, horrible on our nervous system. But one thing that's helped me is to sort of realize that what like there's a difference between a threat, like a governmental threat to do something, and the actual attack part of something happening. And so it's been very useful for me to divide the two things when I'm also reading the news, is just parsing out, is this the threat of something that we still have room to potentially reverse, or is this something that's actually happening? And I think a lot of the times, or I was at least, I was reacting like, oh, this is happening now, as opposed to there's like room yet for like the other things to kick in, or, being able to reverse it.
I liked that response, Ingrid, because especially the part where you talk about the filtering. I no longer have any of the major social media platforms. I have no Facebook, no Instagram, no X, Twitter, no TikTok, none of that stuff, because of the way in which it seems like it's designed to keep my nervous system on edge. And I was diagnosed a few years ago with multiple sclerosis. So my nervous system is already under attack and I don't need any further ones. So one of the things I do is, like you said, I choose when to engage with news. And I'm very intentional about the source that I'm going to engage. I'm learning that some of the papers that we consider the papers of record in this country are doing some of the greatest damage. New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal. I can name many more. So what I do when I have received a bit of news that is depressing about what this country is doing to immigrants or people seeking uh, safety, what it's doing to children, um, is I return to the work. I write it, make sure that my essays directly address these things, trying to find community within that, or I surround myself with beauty. I take walks around the city. I'll sometimes walk for 10 miles. I walked to the tip of Manhattan once just because I wanted to see smiling faces, people having joy. New York is a very interesting city in that when you walk from neighborhood to neighborhood, the languages change. You go from hearing Polish to hearing Spanish to hearing English to hearing Russian, to hearing all of these different languages, and you see all of these different people, and you smell all of these different things, and it's all so very beautiful. And so you can't help but say, yes, there is these horrors and there's so many reasons to despair, but there's also reasons to fight, because look at how beautiful it is when we look at each other and can actually see each other, and not we're not just words on a screen, we're actually living, breathing human beings. So that's part of my practice.
I'll just say really quickly, you know, I ended up having to kind of tag myself out of a lot of it this year, just because I had a lot of loss as well. My mom passed right when my book was coming out, and that fucked me up for a while, and I had to kind of focus on my wellness and doing my best to promote these two books. But I've also been able to do that really well. And so I'm in a much better space, and I've been thinking a lot about the fact that I'm close to being ready to kind of tag myself back in. And I don't yet know what that looks like, but I'm thinking about all of the different possibilities and what does that mean. Writing is always at the center, and that's never going to change, but I am thinking about how I'm spending my time and how I can just take a more active role because I want to. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm figuring it out. I'm open to suggestions and ideas.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. And everyone, this is great. Final question. I think this is a specific one that I've been getting all year from students, which is, and you guys, I think, have touched upon this directly or indirectly, but I just want to kind of capstone it with this because I think so many of the people here with us tonight are writers, and so many of my students have just been asking, how do you write when it feels like the world is falling apart? Do you have any advice for that? Robert, go.
Maybe it's just the way that I'm set up, but especially when things are falling apart is where I feel the most drive and need to write. That is where I am centered. That is where I am whole. That's where things make sense. It is in the writing. I've been writing since I was 6 years old. And I have through my entire life, whenever things seemed out of control or hostile or unbelievable, it was the only place that I found safety, the only place that I found joy, the only place that I felt smart and beautiful and loved and wanted was on that page. So it is almost instinct for me when I am feeling out of sorts to make sense of it in the work on the page. So I would say to young writers and budding writers that that is that is exactly the time when you should be going to the page, when you are when you're having all of that doubt and fear and whatever else. It's the writing will help you make sense of that. It will make it manageable.
I often, well, yeah, to kind of go along with what Robert is saying, I also often think that writing is just a form of sustained thinking. Like we can do a limited type of thinking, or at least for myself, if I'm sitting and thinking about something and trying to figure something out, there's a sort of limitation of, following your own train of thought when you're sitting thinking about something. And when you're writing something, it's just this, technology that allows you to stay in the same place and to build on your thoughts slowly. And that sort of work becomes so important, especially if things are eroding or if things are happening too quickly, not only for ourselves and what it can do for ourselves to name, this is what I'm feeling and this is what it's happening, but the community work of, somebody sitting down and going through the kind of grieving process or the thinking process or the feeling process, whatever that is, to say, to name, like, this is what is happening to us and this is what is being done to us. Because then when that is spoken into a room, we can all just kind of agree and say, like, shit, that is happening to us and this is what is being done to us. And it sort of, I think, especially when things are eroding, it has the power to bring oxygen in a room, right? Like suddenly now we have a common, understanding of what is happening to us and what our life is like. Then it just creates the space to ask like the next question, like, what do we do about this? Like, what are the things that we care about? What are the spaces that we want to build? Um, and so I think sometimes something that can happen is that we think of writing as, completely personal, private, individual work. We're all in our spaces writing. Like I myself can't even write it in a coffee shop because I get distracted if somebody can see me. You know, I just can't even do it. But there is a sort of communal part of writing, which is that, somebody publishes an essay or somebody gives a reading or even somebody shares what they're working on with you and you read it. And then there's this communal, where I am now thinking about what you're thinking and it's changing and rearranging how I'm seeing, my life. Yeah, so I think it's especially important in the time when we're feeling out of sorts.
Yeah, I really like resonate with both what both Robert and Ingrid just said. Like I think if you're in a certain tradition, it can even be like like I feel very like energized by some particular moments of like difficulty that feels to be like out, just like some. It's a writing. I think for a long time has been a place for me to like arrest some semblance of power when I feel otherwise powerless. So I think in some ways I feel sometimes I could be energized or animated by the difficulty or the horror. That said, sometimes that's not the case. And it's like finding this balance between being gentle with yourself and being like okay with like what you actually mean by like getting your writing done, or doing your writing. Like I think a trouble can happen when you're like, okay, this horrible thing happens, and I feel like you almost feel like your writing has to meet whatever's troubling you exactly, like in some specific way, and that's just not how it works. Um, in its most magical place, like you're putting all your attention and energy like in this sentence, maybe these syllables in front of you. And if you can like, and again, like I think, we like to say like writing, like, writing isn't therapy as like a sort of like an over response to the idea of saying that writing is therapeutic, and it can and it can't be. I think for everyone is different. I don't know if writing is therapy or not. But what I know is that the practice of putting your attention somewhere specific that matters to you can be really helpful, particularly in times of sort of maybe like emotional distress or sort of scattered horror happening that can be what it feels like to be tapped in with the news. And so for me though, like in a very practical sense, the things that help me be able to read in like right now, for example, is having some type of routine where, like wake up, I'll do my meditations. I'll do my meditation early in the day, get some kind of physical movement in my body like that day. Try to eat okay, like do all those like the regular life health things like to keep me like from just being super duper anxious / depressed, and be reading something that really inspires me, reading work of like people who are here right now. And I find that when I get to the page, it gets a little bit easier then. And if you absolutely can't, like, don't like hurt yourself for it. Also, like, if you like, don't like be too cruel. Like sometimes, like sometimes you can't write that day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is also a thing. But maybe you can read something. Maybe you can engage with something. Like, it's like finding that balance. Some kind of balance.
I agree so much with everything that everybody said. In fact, to the point where I was taking notes. Um, I guess I'll add also that to add on to what Nana said, sometimes doing the work and engaging with the work isn't necessarily putting words on the page. This is something that I am constantly reminding myself. Sometimes it is engaging with someone else's work by reading. Sometimes it is going out and just doing what I think of as being in the world to remember that there is sort of a larger space out there. I love what Robert said about surrounding yourself with beauty and finding sort of nourishment in that and reasons to keep going. I was volunteering somewhere yesterday locally, and I came away thinking there's so much need in the world, especially right now. And just on my walk home, I was thinking about sort of all of the people that I met, but then also there were these beautiful leaves happening and there was this bird song. And I thought, well, I can't be admiring that while I'm also thinking about these terrible things that are happening to people in my community. And I realized actually those two things go together. There's so much need in the world, but there is also so much beauty and generosity in the world. And finding that balance in between them for me has been a large part of doing my work. Maybe I'm rationalizing to myself that that is all sort of feeding into, but in some ways it is about kind of trying to integrate those two truths in the world, that both of those things are there. I think that's ultimately a lot of times what we are trying to do in all of our work. We're trying to talk about things that are hard, but we're also trying to find ways in which they have meaning, or they can do something that is healing, or I hate the word productive, but that does something positive for ourselves, for someone else. And that's part of the work too. This is not a good answer to your question, Brian, but I guess, in some ways, being just letting yourself sort of be in the world and absorb it and think about it and then come back and name it when you can is sometimes the best we can do.
I think for me, I hope this doesn't sound deranged. When I was in college, my first major was political science. And everyone in my life was like, you're going to make a great lawyer. So that's what I thought I was. I either wanted to work in politics or I wanted to be an attorney. And that path didn't work out. But what I understand about myself is that there's a part of me that really enjoys a confrontation. Maybe it is the legacy of being a Black trans woman. I am happy to read a fool for absolute filth. And so, what I'm going to connect that to is that, first I can try to do that in my writing in every way, shape, and form. And also because I've had so much loss this year, I just kind of have stopped giving a fuck about a lot of things. And so I'm apt to say many more things in far less sugar-coated ways than I would have said them in the past. But this is like my point. So connect that impulse, if you have it, to the real truth about writing and reading and language. Everything is in our language. Everything that they want to do to us, that they want the world to be, it's all in the language. And sometimes it requires a close read and a close listen. And sometimes, I mean, with these fools that are running, it really doesn't. Like they really are putting it all out there. So but the real answer and the reason why we know that it's all in the language is because like they're not trying to limit the amount of math that a student can do. They're trying to, ban books, and they're trying to keep people from reading and writing, and they're trying to like impact stories and silence voices. Because in storytelling and in our abilities with language, and especially as writers who really do have great abilities with language, like we can pull the lid up from people's eyes. And so when I think about what it actually means to do this work and to be on the page, when I think about the fact that when I'm on the page, I feel the freest, I feel the least shackled that I feel at any point in my life. And when I think about the fact that there are places and situations where I enjoy a fight, that gets me going. And yeah, so for whatever that's worth, that this year I have not written a ton this year. That's another thing I'm tagging myself back into, but when I have been able to, it's because I've just got something to say that I need to say, and I believe, possibly I'm deluded, but I believe that people need to hear it and people need to read it. And so I've got to be the one to do it.
Fuck yes. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Thank you. Gosh, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, Nana. Thank you, Robert. I love you guys. This has been so great and so inspiring. And just yeah. I thank you to the audience too for spending your Friday night with us.
Brian, thank you for bringing us all together.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
This was so special. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks for being a part of this. And surround yourself with beauty and fucking fight. It can be small. It starts with, but we have to do something. All right. So keep up whatever small way you are resisting, keep it up. And all power to all the people. We got this. So keep at it, you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. And this will be on YouTube. So yes, I will share it with your friends, spread it around. Like let this wisdom go into the world even farther. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Peace, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
I
Bye.